user-centric advertising platform that allows you to measure, serve, and analyze what's happening with your video ad spend. It's launched about 2 years ago, and again, we're the enterprise division of the Tremor Video Incorporated parent company. So we spend a lot of time talking about data at this conference, and I think generally we talk about data, and I think it's great. I'm a bit of a data geek myself. But it kind of strikes me as a funny thing. So I'm also trained as an English teacher, and I love language, and I love words. But I don't love the words because they're words. I love the words because of what they tell me, of the picture they paint, of the information they provide that I can then do something with. And I kind of feel the same way about data. Just staring at the matrix and seeing things flow, that's really not why we have data, big data or small data. We have data and we pay attention to data because of what it tells us what's happening. How do I get better? How do I change something? Is it working? Is it not working? And so I think it's useful to remember that, the sort of data for data's sake, we all need to sort of get past that, and how do we work with data in an actionable way, okay? So I'm going to start with a quick video.
Right here at table 19, a secret crush turned out to be a mutual attraction. The Westgate cousins went old school to decide who pays the check. A local book club raved about the cliffhangers in the new crime novel. And some BFFs from college joked about looking up old flames on Facebook. All over delicious entrees, like our new Parmesan-crusted steak from our $20 dinner for two. Chili's. More life happens here.
Simple. It's lunch. Thought it was appropriate. This is probably 80% of, maybe more than that, 85% of all video advertising you see. Television, online, simple pre-roll, great production values, simple call to action, some fun stuff going on there, all different age groups, people talking about their old boyfriends. It's fantastic, right? Very, very simple. For that client, that is exactly the message they want to get across. But what's the most important thing for that video? What is the thing, the table stakes, that drives whether it's going to be successful or not? And again, it's lunch presentation, so I thought, sorry, Adriana, we'll put some meat up on the screen. And what we really consider table stakes, I mean, to define it, and I'm a card player, so I define it maybe a little differently than advertising, but it's that minimum capability. It's that thing you absolutely need to have a seat at the table, to know whether you're going to win or lose, to understand performance of your advertising. And for video, maybe slightly different than other digital mediums, that table stake is viewability, right? We think that piece within the video ecosystem is the one that doesn't get addressed enough and is the sort of seminal point you have to start with when you're analyzing a video campaign. Now, we can buy reach, we can buy awareness, we can buy ROI, we can buy by various KPIs, we can buy likes, we can buy all kinds of stuff. But if none of that is viewable, what are you really getting out of it? So as campaigns are running, guess what? People go to websites and they read content. They don't just go to websites to watch video. I know I work in video, but I don't drink that much Kool-Aid to think that that's the only thing we go to, unless you go into Hulu, right, and then you go there to watch video. But say you're on ESPN, you're reading about the hockey game last night, and you're reading this content, and that ad is playing that you as a brand marketer, or you as an agency, or you as a vendor have decided to deliver, and that campaign is slowly sliding off the screen. Because I'm reading the content. I'm engaged with what's happening in that story. And lo and behold, you get to this really unenviable point, the 0% viewability. Now, I don't really care what marketing outcome you're trying to drive. If you didn't see it, you're not going to get it. Now, funnily enough, you do see some campaigns that have clicks on non-viewable ads, and that's a whole separate discussion we can have, which I don't really understand how that works, but we see that data. So for us, the primary thing you have to start with particularly in video, is starting with this viewability piece, because if it's not seen, it can't be effective. Now, data, and big data and small data, and first-party data and third-party data can all be applied to video and display and search and TV and print. But my question always is, unless you know what you're trying to get out of that campaign, Overlaying data is just a confusing process, right? So again, I go back to the matrix, you see the screen with the green numbers coming down, and that doesn't mean anything to any of us. What are you getting out of that campaign? What are the table stakes that you need in order to drive success in this huge investment that's coming into video? I mean, it's incredible. And you see TV and digital buyers coming together at agencies. You see brands who manage this themselves internally, looking at video as video. And TV has not had the viewability problem. It does not, that monolithic sort of viewing source that has existed for 60 years, which is the greatest branding vehicle we've ever experienced, doesn't have the viewability problem yet. Will it? We'll see. But digital video does, because there's other content you're viewing on that screen. So one of the things that we pursued nearly a year ago was standards around viewability. And we're big believers. We work very closely with the IAB and the MRC. And we were very excited to be the first and only company that's been accredited for video viewability in the space. It's a brutal process. It's not any fun. Our product and dev and finance people all hated us for a long time. But we got through that process, and we're very happy to announce that just a few weeks ago, actually. And I would encourage people, when they're thinking about standards and they're thinking about video specifically, working with folks who are accredited in some way. If viewability is important to you, you should work with folks who are accredited in viewability. And I know that sounds a little self-serving, but there will be other people also accredited in viewability. We just happen to be the first, right? And we're thrilled about that. But from a standard standpoint, work with folks who measure what they say they're going to measure, show you the methodology behind that, and then deliver the results and the proof that that's actually happening. We were also accredited across a variety of other metrics, which are, again, these are table stakes in the sort of digital ecosystem, impressions and clicks and engagement rate, et cetera. But you really stay focused on the standards. And the IAB is our standards body, and they, by the end of the year, will probably come up with a position on what the exact right standard is for viewability. Fantastic. And maybe it'll match what we've done. Great. And if it doesn't, we provide all the data, so we're happy to sort of mold that around what the standard ends up being. So this viewability thing, not always that sexy, right? It's like, did I see it or not? I mean, that's like, it doesn't really compare to, oh my God, look at this great creative I just did, or look at this great engagement piece, or look at the incredible turnaround on social media that I did. But it really is important, particularly in video, because of the time element, right? And I'm just going to walk you through that. So what we track here is this average viewability ad impression, right, which is kind of a basic thing. And that works great for display. But for video, there's a time component. So you have to actually measure the viewability as the ad is playing during the whole 30 seconds, 15 seconds, or we have some folks who run like longer form 2 or 3 minute pre-rolls. And knowing what that viewability is over the time that it's running drives everything else you're trying to get out of that campaign. It's going to drive what your ROI is. It's going to drive what KPI you're trying to drive, whether it's brand lift, et cetera. And then we also provide, what percentage of those impressions were 100% in view. And I'll tell you, looking at data across billions of ads being served, this is fascinating, right? And it's, again, not for data's sake, but because what it tells me about where the investment is happening online. And we run these campaigns, our marketers, run on 100 different publishers, everyone from big players like Hulu and ABC, et cetera, to, smaller long tail publishers. And being able to see this continuum of viewability across the life of that pre-roll ad is incredibly powerful. And I'm going to show you an example of that a little bit later, but this is actual dollars that may be wasted or not wasted depending upon where those ads are running. And a lot of people get, no offense to MediaPost, but a lot of people get wrapped up with the fraud piece of this. Oh my God, ads are running and they can't see them. That's not the issue. Right? Fraud is a minuscule, fraction of a percentage of all ad delivery. It really is just because it's being delivered in a digital environment and people are consuming content on that page, and so the ad gets scrolled off. It's very simple. Nothing nefarious going on here. It's just, was it in view or not? In this case, and this was an actual example that we blinded, it's only 2% of these ads were 100% viewable. And I would argue, to our publisher clients who license our platform and to our marketers and agency clients, is that good enough? Is that really where the bar should be? 2%? We're 100% viewable? I don't think so. I think when you're paying the CPMs you pay for video, I think you should be looking to get a little bit more out of it than that. But until now, there hasn't been an easy way to track it, and so we're happy to provide that for the ecosystem. The next thing that we looked at viewability and we said, okay, that's great. We can see over time, but one of our agency clients came back to us and said, well, why don't you give me some way to score this so I can look at the 20 creatives that are running across 50 different publishers within 5 different campaigns. Give me a way to look at this from an index standpoint that includes viewability, that shows me what I'm getting out of it. And so we developed something called the EQ score. We take 100% credit for this, but it was 100% our client who told us to do this. So I will raise my hand and give them kudos. They know who they are. So this EQ score, which is patented, tells you the following. The time an ad was being viewed, the size of the player that ad was shown in, which is an important quality piece, and the amount of the percentage of viewability that ad was over the course of its run was 15 or 30-second pre-roll. So there's a little math here, so sorry, lunchtime math is not good, but I'll show you how this works. So ad starts, it's running, say, in a medium-sized player, it gets a score, it gets a 0.9. The first 15, first quartile, depending on how long it is, we measure, was it in view, was it not in view, was the viewer still there watching? The ad is playing, the ad is scrolling, similar to the slide previously where the ad was scrolling off the screen. But now we're combining these 3 elements. The player size, which is a quality component, the time it was on the in view, and what percentage of it was in view. And at the end of this, and this is where sort of the gold is, again, the data, for the data's sake, is not that important. It's you want to get the result out of it. This particular campaign had an EQ score of 67.5. So that means that you can take that, multiply your CPM by it, and you can get what your effective quality CPM that you paid for this ad. And surprise, surprise, you usually get a little bit less than what you paid for. That's true in almost everything I've ever bought. You get a little bit less than what you pay for. But the EQ score finally gives you a way, and you can call this whatever you want. You can call this the quality index, you can call it just my score, but it gives you a way to look at hundreds of placements across dozens and dozens of publishers and say, where am I getting a good impression? Where am I delivering my precious video asset in a quality premium environment? Now, you can quibble with whether a 0.9 is right or a 0.8 for the player size, and that's fine. That's a conversation we'd love to have because I'm not the standard setting body. I'm just here to provide the data to you so that all of you can make better decisions about your video ad spend. And that gets me in trouble sometimes because I like to say, I don't care how you bought your media. I don't care what you paid for it. All I care about is that you're measuring it in a standard way so that you can compare and contrast across wherever you're buying video, whatever platforms you're using, and for whatever brands you're running, compare those in an easy way to give you data that's usable, right? Not data that is like a rock hitting you in the head and, oh my God, I need to hire 7 people in order to digest this, but data that you can turn around tomorrow and take action on. Right, this happens in real time. It's not 6 months later you get some report and tells you, oh, I should have done these 3 things. And meanwhile, you've missed 2 campaigns already. You know this in real time every single day. So your agency or your brand or increasingly the publishers, and this has been the thing that been in the business for a while, and the publisher side of our ecosystem has really stepped forward on this sort of standards-based stuff. I was asked to present to the Magazine Publishers Association, and they all just tackled me. They're like, we need to have the same data that our agencies and marketers have when they're buying on us. And I love that. I think that's fantastic because that brings the ecosystem together, and we're now talking the same language. We incorporated GRPs 1.5 years ago, so that currency piece is solved for TV buyers and digital buyers. The next piece is viewability and how to score that. And then we can start to overlay buying data. You know, what geographies are responding? What time of day is the right one, the right time of day to drive brand lift? All of the deep, big iron analytics that we want to get to, now you can apply that to things that matter. Because if the ads aren't viewable, the rest of it doesn't matter. So why do we have to do this, right? Because I think the digital ecosystem has sort of grown rather significantly, but it's kind of stayed in this sort of direct marketing world, which is great. We all have products we need to sell, myself included. But really, with the advent of video and more advanced display advertising, digital has moved into the middle of the funnel. Right? We're now into engagement, where we now have the technologies to be able to know whether someone has leaned forward, leaned back, scrolled off the page, ignored your message completely, and that is a great step towards marketing, not digital marketing versus traditional marketing. It's just marketing. It's like, how do I talk to my customer, and did I know I reached them? And I'm pretty excited that digital is finally kind of growing up, right? It's kind of becoming a marketing medium and not a death by clicks, right? Because the great thing about digital, and I said this 15 years ago, the great thing about digital is it can be measured. And the worst thing about digital is that it can be measured. So as we're moving up the funnel here and being able to apply standard traditional marketing tactics and KPIs to digital video, we need to have some different tools in place. And again, viewability, GRPs, the ability to do analysis on what's working and what's not, table stakes to be able to drive this business forward. So these tools have to change. And I'm going to show you something terrifying in a second. But just from a platform and buying and creative standpoint, the world in which those all live in silos, I think you're seeing this is kind of coming to an end. Right? So the creative agencies are now working much more closely with the CMOs of the brands on ROI, not just did this look great, does this make me feel good, did my board see it running on Glee, right? And that's been the sort of traditional model in the past, but that's changing now with digital because of the tools that are now in your hands to be able to drive effectiveness and efficiency. So here's the, you might want to just not have any food in your mouth here, but here's the terrifying slide. We have marketers and we have consumers. Our whole industry is about bridging that gap between the two of them. And here's what we've done. We have created the hardest possible way for a marketer and a consumer to talk to one another, right? We have put hundreds of companies in between the people you want to reach in the most effective and efficient way. Now, some of this is necessary because digital is a little bit more of a complicated medium than print, at least from a technology standpoint or from TV. But this is a little crazy, right? And someone mentioned the Lumascape slides earlier, and I think Todd and Kevin were talking about being able to actually have data that I can use and take action on. That's kind of hard to do when, say you're Jason and you want to launch a video campaign, for Caterpillar. You've got to figure out which of these 22 companies you want to work with, and do they talk to one another? And that's where the standards piece comes in. I would love it if everyone in this room would, say, hey, we really want to use VideoHub, and that's great. But I would love it more if we just all agreed to standards. Right? And that's, I think, the key piece here. Measuring things, particularly in video, that are translatable from traditional advertising and marketing to digital advertising and marketing. So you're stuck, right? You've got all of this data. You've got all of this stuff. You've got video growing just at an incredible clip. How do I take action on this as a brand marketer, as a vendor in the space, as an agency, and as a publisher? How do you really take action on this? My advice is always exactly the same. You have to figure out what matters, right? Don't just sort of run to the down the rabbit hole chasing data that doesn't really matter for you. You know your brands, you know what you're trying to get out of this, and you have a goal in sight, or at least someone in your organization has that goal. Being able to articulate that goal, and I think the earlier panel was talking about ROI, it's a similar thing, trying to know what you're trying to get out of it and make sure the organization is rallied around that. But when you're serving digital video, because of the expense, because of the CPMs that are involved, and because of the complication of it, knowing what you're getting out of it is the first step, and then being able to measure that clearly in a standards-based way, right? Not in a complicated, I need to pat my tummy and rub my head at the same time, but a way that data can be presented to you so you can take action on it easily and quickly, and everyone in the ecosystem understands it. Everyone understands whether something's in view or not. Everyone now understands what a GRP is, like it's just a measure of reach across an audience. Being able to measure those things in a standards-based way across your video buy, that's the thing that really will help us continue to close this gap, not only between the publishers and the advertiser, the marketer and the consumer, but also between the ecosystem as a whole and the different companies who are playing in it. So what we do, because I'd like to talk about what we do very specifically, is provide you a platform that does an awful lot of that. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Does it do a lot of things that enable you to be smarter with your advertising and your video spend? Yes, it does do that. But we're not the, one of my folks said to me a couple weeks ago, we don't want to be the police. And I think that's the right way to put it. I don't want to be the police saying this is good, this is bad. What I want to do is provide a platform and data that's usable to you. Doesn't require 75 pivot charts or the column with 10,000 pieces of data in it. And it allows you to just sort of look and say, am I driving brand lift? Yes or no? Well, why am I driving brand lift? And that's where the analytics piece comes in. That's the data piece. Why is it working? Or, surprise, surprise, sometimes marketing campaigns don't work. Why is it not working? Am I delivering to the wrong audience? Is the time of day wrong? Is the geo wrong? Is the creative wrong? Is it, I want to appeal women 18 to 34, but oh my God, it's only old guys in the middle of the night who are engaging with this ad. There's clearly something wrong with that creative. Having a platform to be able to show you that in an actionable way to take, to really move the campaigns forward, that's the piece that we preach about constantly. The one-off solutions are tough to scale. Right? There's lots of really cool things you can do in each individual silo, but we're talking about scaling a video business, and we're talking about brands who are investing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in this. We need to have sort of scalable architecture and a scalable language that speaks to what we're trying to drive. So a quick example. This is one of our clients who were a little skeptical about the viewability piece. And these were the folks who came back later on and told us that we needed to provide a score for them. And if you look at this chart, and you look in that July timeframe, they were very successful. They're running video campaigns. They were getting a pretty good ROI out of it. They were driving brand lift, that kind of stuff. But they started looking into the data, and they noticed that when we launched viewability that very little of their ads were actually 100% viewable. And they weren't spending a ton of money in video at that point. They were kind of growing along. They were a pretty good chain and had nice budgets, but they really weren't leaning into the video spend. So we turned on viewability for them, and they started looking at the data. And so that blue line that goes to the right of before VideoHub, after VideoHub, shows their investment in digital video and their average viewability in that increased investment. Now, normally in the world, the more you buy of something, right, sort of the less, sort of the results get spread out, right? You usually don't see increase in volume and increase in performance going at the same rate. But they turned to their publishers and they said, hey guys, we love you. We've been working with you for years. You're the greatest publishers in the world, but we're going to hold you to an 80% viewability standard. We're no longer going to buy video or pay you for video that's below 80% viewable. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, good luck. I don't know how that's going to work out for you, but hey, we'll support you on that. And lo and behold, the publishers turned around to their credit and said, nope, we get it. You're right. We'll abide by this. And so that client's, almost said their name, that client's digital spend increased at the same time that their average viewability went through the ceiling. And so imagine now their brand lift doubles, right? And their engagement rate for interactive pre-roll increases because these ads are actually in view. And they even got more clicks if you're interested in clicks. Their reach across their target audiences increased because now the publishers and the advertiser are both talking the same language and both trying to get to a common goal. 80% viewability. That was the table stake for that particular client, and it worked very, very well for them. Oh, well, here's some benchmarks here. We do see a lot of data across a wide variety of clients, so we try and provide benchmarks because a lot of clients ask us, well, what's good and what's bad? And so I just want to provide them. Well, this is what we see in CPG. This is what we see in QSR. This is what we see in auto, et cetera. So my takeaway, and again, Adriana wants to get to her yoga lesson, so I'm going to wrap this up. There's a couple things I just want you to sort of walk away from this. Measuring viewability, we have to start there. As an industry, This is, the display viewability standard is about to be, it's been published, but it's about to be ratified. The video viewability standard will probably be done by the end of the year. There's a bunch of meetings that are going on to drive that, but you got to measure that. You have to understand the engagement with your audience, right, which we all have talked about, which drives ROI, and there's tons of ways to do that. And video, there's ways to do that as well. And then knowing what's having an impact and what's not having an impact, here's this sort of flywheel, right? If I can tell you these 3 things, or any platform can tell you these 3 things are the only 3 things that mattered in this campaign to drive performance, that immediately makes your lives easier, better, and faster, and you can take action a lot easier. And that's the goal of analytics, to tell you why, not tell you what, right? What is just metrics. Analytics is why it happened, and then how can I use that? Do I want to change my color scheme to improve performance? No? Okay. So in the end, as you're finishing your lunch, just remember what the table stakes are here. What are the fundamental things we need to focus on in order to drive our video investment? How to measure them, what's important. Take this stake image, burn it into your brain, and the next time you're working on video or display or any other medium that viewability counts, just remember to ask those questions. How are you dealing with this? How do I know my ads are being shown? So my question will be, next time I see all of you, do you have what it takes to be successful in video? And hopefully you do by then. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? I know we got to run for the afternoon activities. Any questions for Anthony before got one here real quick. Problem? Or real long, whatever you want to do.
I'm here all day. So.
Thank you for the steak reference. But the QSR example that you showed, did they see a lift in ROI as well as viewability, or were they only measuring viewability?
Yeah, so this is it's an interesting client in that they came to us being purely direct response, right? It was couponing and getting people to sign up for steak dinner, or so get coupons, et cetera. But as they started using the platform, they shifted into a hybrid model where brand lift, they were able to go back to their client and say, we're seeing some really interesting data here that we don't think is captured in the direct response model. So we want to measure brand lift as well. And so they started doing that through the platform. And it is brand lift that increased rather significantly as a result of the viewability growing. So to the CMO of that restaurant, that's what that person wanted.
Sorry, just a quick follow-on question. Was it a series of videos? Was it one specific video? And how long were the videos on average?
They tend to run 15 and 30s, more 15 pre-rolls. This was a series of campaigns, so it wasn't one piece of creative that they tested. They kind of went whole hog. And so their entire sort of rest of year campaigns, which I think were maybe 10 different pieces of creative, if I remember correctly.
And were they, sorry, last question. Were they designed for online, or were they like a TV campaign that they also shortened for online as well?
Both. So they repurposed their TV spots, which is great. I mean, pre-roll and mid-roll is fantastic branding vehicle. But they also, we had helped them build some interactive units so they could track engagement as well. And that's something that we can do through the platform as well with the brands. Yeah. You take the best of digital by having some engagement slates you can roll over and learn more about that particular restaurant, et cetera.
And you have some people here from VideoHub, right?
Yeah, I got a small army who will tackle all of you at the door.
Raise your hand if you're from VideoHub. I don't know if they're here right now.
They're in the back. We got Matt back there, and then we got Jim Mahoney floating around in the back. But we'll see you at dinner tonight.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Anthony. Big hand. Okay. And so we move into the afternoon activities now. Just a couple quick notes. If you're playing golf, 2 o'clock shuttle will pick you up. It's basically the American Club shuttle. So go out, tell them where you're playing. You should know this by now. If you don't know where you're playing, go out and talk to June. She'll tell you. But pick up the shuttle at 2 o'clock. They'll take you to the course. And then that's at 2 p.m. Fishing is also 2 p.m. And then if you're going horseback riding or you're doing yoga, that's 2:30. So be out at the front at 2:30. Yes, sir. Actually, there isn't an empty horse. The